Hello my peeps, both old and new, because I'm hoping this video is gonna reach a lot of you who maybe haven't been around this channel before, but are currently looking into planning a trip to Scotland in 2025, and you're curious about what are some new things to kind of keep an eye out for, what are some new attractions that are opening that you should definitely jump on just so you can, be one of the first, have that unique experience. But also, if you have been on this channel, if you do like my content already, then hopefully this is going to be an interesting way of catching up with what's going on in Scotland, in Edinburgh, in Glasgow in 2025. Now, if you're into local politics, then maybe you have heard that Scotland is about to introduce a tourist tax. Not Scotland as a whole, but for now Edinburgh. Now, I am mentioning this in this video, even though technically this is something that's supposed to be introduced next year, in summer 2026. But right now, the timeline essentially says that if post May 2025 you make any bookings for summer 2026 and further, they will be affected by this tax, which is supposed to be 5%, not the end of the world, but maybe it's going to make a difference to you. So that's just something I wanted to start with, because it is a noticeable change. Okay, now that money talk is over, let's talk about some new attractions. First up, one that I am very excited for, which is the Inverness Castle. Inverness Castle is finally reopening. Now, I feel like as far into the past as I can remember, the Inverness Castle has always been closed. Now, I would always visit Inverness. It is this really cool landmark around the river in the city. I do really enjoy Inverness, but objectively, there has never been that much to do there, and that's gonna possibly, hopefully, if everything goes right, change in 2025 because the castle is reopening. Now, pre-closing for these renovations, it actually wasn't like a castle as you might imagine, like Stirling Castle or Edinburgh Castle. It actually used to be a courthouse and a prison, so don't feel bad that you didn't see it before it closed down for these renovations. However, do get excited for when it reopens this year. So from what I've seen, it is going to be a lot less like visiting something like Edinburgh Castle, and a lot more like visiting Edinburgh Castle for the Castle of Light, with a lot of kind of light and vision installations that are supposed to bring storytelling about a Highland culture to you. I think, it's very modern, and I think it's gonna work for a lot of younger people who might not be quite as excited for walking around a medieval castle and reading a lot of plaques. So this is gonna be a lot more immersive and just exciting and, regrettably, I need to use this word, but Instagrammable/TikTokable. So that's something that we're getting in 2025, but it is not the only thing that we're getting in Inverness, because also another thing that's opening there is the Museum of Shinty. And I love the word shinty, possibly because of that Mitchell and Webb look.
As in the popular phrase, I only have shinty 6 days left to live.
But anyway, I digress. Shinty in real life is a ancient, possibly, Scottish Highland sport, which you can still see some people play these days, usually in the Highlands. It's not super common, which is why I only ever hear about it when I'm on some sort of big trip into the north. Here in the central belt, you would think it just doesn't exist, but it very much does. Anyway, we're gonna definitely learn more about history and all of the other fun of Shinty in the Shinty Museum, and I think it's also going to be like a playing field for Shinty, so not only you will be able to learn about the history and kind of the cultural heritage of it, but also you will hopefully, if you time things right, be able to watch Shinty be played in Inverness in 2025. Now, down here in Edinburgh, Royal Yacht Britannia has not closed down or anything, no panics, but it will be opening a brand new visitor centre, which should feature never before seen films and photos of the royal family. So if you or any of your family members are into the royal family of United Kingdom, then this is something that you should not miss out on. And also in this area is the Port of Leith distillery, which just opened last year, so you can kind of mix and match these two very new things with the view over the Firth of Forth. I think that might be a really nice afternoon out. And just so you know that I can keep thinking beyond places like Edinburgh and Glasgow, there is a new museum also opening in Paisley. Now, last year we got a new or like improved museum up in Perth. Paisley is really close to Glasgow, and they have been working on this museum, which should be new and improved and bigger and more accessible and just a more modern, more fun way of exploring the cultural and industrial heritage of that area. I am really excited to see it. I think that it's really good if you have been to Scotland before, then if you're visiting again, to kind of delve deeper into some of this local history and sort of like industry and craftsmanship of these specific sort of parts of Scotland that are not just Edinburgh and Glasgow. I would also recommend, if you're on that sort of quest, you should pop into Dundee, because they do have quite a lot of museum exhibitions on that sort of thing, on like textile work and such. And it's really fun to kind of like learn about things that are very specifically linked to the place you are at. Also, just quickly to remind you that we've had a bunch of places opening or reopening last year in 2024. So we now have the Alpine roller coaster up in the Pentlands, which I think is about 1 kilometer long, goes up to like 30 miles per hour and costs £7 for one ride. If you're curious about it, I'm gonna recommend Michael's video where he did kind of like a POV ride down the hill. I'm not gonna show you too much. Go check out his channel. He was braver than me, although now that I know that it's only 30 miles per hour, I will probably do it at some point too. If you'd like me ride down the Alpine roller coaster, let me know down below. You've seen me in my Christmas videos struggling even with the Ferris wheel, so it might be fun and horrible for me. Good content. Another slightly adrenaline-y but a bit more sporty space just outside of Edinburgh is the Lost Shore wave pool. I think that they call it resort. This is a place where you can take surfing lessons, or if you are already a surfer, then you know you can just live your surfing dreams there without having to rely on the wave being good. I'm trying to like bring some sort of surfer lingo. I don't know, never surfed. Simon's mom surfed, and I think that she broke her tooth on a surf, even though she's relatively good. So since then I thought maybe I shouldn't, because fixing your teeth, even in Britain, very expensive. Anyway, if you do want to bring your friends who do like to surf but you yourself do not like to surf, then do not worry, because this space, not only you can actually stay there overnight in one of their cabins, but also it is like a wellness resort, so you can get a little massage, some sort of nice treatment while your friends are breaking their teeth. Win. And also down in Granton by the river is the new location of The Pit, which used to be a couple of years quite a big deal in terms of our Edinburgh street food scene. Nowadays they are in Granton, so that's quite far away from the city centre, but I think that 2025 is supposed to be like a really big year for them. They have a lot of events. You can watch Six Nations there. They do have little like sauna pods, so once again it's something like there's an activity, but also it's connected to wellness. Now, on this channel, you will constantly hear me giving you tips on what I think are great places to visit around Scotland based on my preferences and what I find fun. However, there are other authorities that do have some thoughts on this in 2025. For example, and I will not fight them on this, National Geographic has put Outer Hebrides, which is a chain of islands kind of outside of Skye. So you go to the west coast, you hit Skye, and beyond Skye there's a whole bunch of other islands. The most famous of them, I believe, would be Lewis and Harris, and they put that chain of islands on their list. I think that's a great idea, because the islands of Scotland are I won't say underappreciated. I have so many friends who love them, but I think that they are quite like underexplored. So if you are a bit adventurous, because I'm not gonna say it's not in any way dangerous. It is beautiful, but sometimes you might get stuck somewhere due to being reliant on the ferries. So that's I think the only thing. I haven't actually been to Outer Hebrides, so maybe this is my year. Last year was just my first time in Skye, so I think that I can now graduate to Outer Hebrides. Let me know in the comment section if that's something that you'd like to see through my lens before you go, because yeah, that sounds like quite a good adventure. A slightly more unexpected, the New York Times have put the Flow Country on their list of places that should be on your travel radar in 2025. The Flow Country, unlike Outer Hebrides, I feel like that's not something that most of you have heard of unless, you know, you are a real Scotland fanatic. It is an area kind of close by to the North Coast 500 route, so like the very, very north of mainland Scotland, and it is a big bog. What could go wrong? No, this is actually, which might be interesting to some of you, the biggest blanket bog system in the world. And I feel like in a lot of countries, regarding to their culture or like their sort of gastronomy, this might not be in any way important. But I would say that in Scotland, bogs mean peat, and peat is used in whiskey, so it kind of ties in pretty neatly into like a nice little whiskey-related parcel. Now, Condé Nast has put Aberdeen on their list of 25 places to visit in 2025, which I feel like a lot of people would probably fight them on. But personally, I take it as a challenge. I think it would be really cool to spend more time in Aberdeen this year and just, you know, see more stuff. I think that a guide to Aberdeen on this channel is long overdue. From what I know about Aberdeen, it's kind of a city where like you arrive and you have to kind of know where you're going. Like all of the good stuff is a bit kind of disconnected from the center and from each other, but I definitely already have some faves up in Aberdeen, including the Bandit Bakery, which was one of my big faves during my exploration of Scotland's best bakeries. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It was a lot of fun and I shot it throughout probably about like 8 months. So yeah, a lot of work went into it, a lot of travel, and the bakes were a great reward. And if you're not afraid of Aberdeen, then you might reward yourself as well. And back to the Central Belt, Glasgow is actually celebrating its 850th anniversary this year. Last year it was Edinburgh's turn. That was a 900th birthday, and this year it's Glasgow. Now, Glasgow already has a lot of events going on for this year, so I would say if you like to celebrate alongside this great city, you should definitely pop over. You know I love Glasgow, so do not miss out on it. You shouldn't have missed out on it in 2024, and don't do it in 2025, but this year there's like a good reason for it, because everyone is gonna feel very festive about their city's birthday. Oh, and I just remembered, if you are coming to Edinburgh for the first time ever, or maybe you haven't been here in a while, then I have little something for you, which is my collaboration with a website called Mapper. I have teamed up with them and we have created a map of about 130 of my favorite spots in Edinburgh, but you will, outside of Edinburgh, find a lot of great guides from locals on Mapper. So whichever city, whichever country you're interested in, you will find it on Mapper. But of course, if you're on this channel, then chances are that you're interested in Scotland and Edinburgh. So right now, my profile on Mapper has a map to Edinburgh. If you go there as a non-paying visitor, you will only see a handful of places I recommend, but you can unlock the whole map for €5. Or if you want to give me a bit of a tip for the work or for my work here, and you don't want to become one of my patrons, you can simply pop over to Mapper, pay €10 and get access to my full map with all of my tips. Great sort of pointers to both places I think nobody should miss, but also places that are, you know, a bit of like hidden gems, like my personal faves that maybe are not on your radar but should be. After you're done with this video, why not head on over to Mapper? I'm definitely gonna leave a link in the doobly-doo, so do check it out. It might really help your planning for visiting Edinburgh in 2025. Okay, so last year I tried to cover events in the 2024 iteration of this video, and I think there are just too many, so I'm gonna try and simplify it. I'm gonna say that Scotland in general is amazing for festivals. Like, you probably know that Edinburgh is a very festival-centric city, but Glasgow also has many festivals. And one thing to keep in mind, kind of a rule of thumb, is that the festival season in Glasgow actually happens more kind of like winter and spring. It kind of starts with the Celtic connections now kind of end of January, and it rolls into spring, and then kind of as I would say like June hits, you can start it kind of overlapping with Edinburgh, and that's where the Edinburgh festival season starts, which kind of goes from the Science Festival, which is kind of in spring, all the way to the obvious Fringe and also the International Festival. And also the Edinburgh International Festival and everything in between. Also, as always, we are about to see a lot of cool concerts. I do not have these memorized, so I'm just gonna grab my computer and read these out to you, especially the Central Belt ones, because as you can imagine, Glasgow and Edinburgh have the biggest venues, so they sort of attract the biggest names. Over in Glasgow this year, 2025, we're gonna see Primal Scream, Simple Minds, Billie Eilish, Sabrina Carpenter, Tyler, the Creator, Snow Patrol, Limp Bizkit, Ollie Murs, Scissor Sisters, 21 Pilots, Toto, and that's not the end of the list, but I'm gonna end it on a concert I really wish I could see, but I couldn't quite justify the costs yet. This is one of my favorite sort of indie music creators of this moment, and that is Dayglow. Anyway, over in Edinburgh, we're gonna be seeing Mogwai, we're gonna be seeing Michael Kiwanuka, great artist, The Darkness, Robbie Williams, who is having a bit of a revival right now, also Primal Scream, Pixies, Oasis. You are not getting tickets for that anymore unless you're willing to, you know, pay a lot of money to like a scalper. And also Kaiser Chiefs, which is kind of a favorite of my childhood, so that's kind of cute. I think that they're going to be playing at the Castle. So if you don't want to pay to hear Kaiser Chiefs, usually when you have a concert going on at the Castle, you can stand in like the Grassmarket area and hear quite a lot of it. Like when I first moved here, Arcade Fire were playing at the Castle, and I heard it all the way in Abbey Hill in like our new bathroom. So yeah, these concerts, these like open air concerts, especially the central ones in the Castle and the sort of Esplanade, are quite audible. Also, if you're into this particular sports niche, the WWE is bringing their show to Glasgow. Glasgow actually does have a bit of a pro wrestling scene of its own, like small but cool. So I think that it's really cool that WWE is bringing their, I think the tour is called the Road to WWE, and they're stopping at a couple of places. I think there's one in England, one in Scotland, and a bunch in Europe. So if that's a fun pastime that you are into, then check it out. And when it comes to kind of hospitality and like food and hotel industry, it's always kind of hard to tell you this kind of looking into the whole 12-month period. Usually the only places that you will know about this far in advance are the really big ones, the really kind of Michelin-y ones, or things that are kind of like expansions or of chains coming from down in London and England into Scotland, which I don't think is something that you should overly focus on. However, I think one thing that's quite interesting is that a chef who used to work at Noma in Copenhagen is about to open a farm-to-table restaurant in Stockbridge. It's going to be called Moss, I believe. I think that's happening in like a couple of weeks. So I think that will be an exciting one to try out. Also, there's a new place opening in Glasgow in not too long of a time. I think it's going to be called The Noble, and I believe that they said that they're going to be serving Scotland's best bacon roll, which I'm afraid is probably going to mean that it's going to be quite far removed from what you imagine under the term bacon roll, but it might still be delicious. So again, I might go over to Glasgow and try that out. And one last note about food, gastronomy, you know, Scottish cooking. I think it's quite interesting that in Glasgow they are actually having the Michelin Awards next month in February on the 10th. I think that it means that Scottish cuisine is truly getting some like good recognition, that like Scotland and even more interesting, Glasgow is being chosen as like the point where the Michelin Awards are going to be, you know, brought up. So I think that's like overall, like when it comes to trends about travel, that's a good sign. I'm really happy about that. Now, I have been battling like the weirdest either allergy or like a light cold, and now after talking to the camera for 30 minutes, my nose is getting really stuffy, I'm getting really nasal, so I think that's my sign to wrap this up. I'm gonna thank myself later when I'm editing this that I haven't spent 50 minutes talking to the camera, but only about 40. That's not that much better, but okay. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Whether you are an old friend of this channel or if you're new, if you are new, don't forget to subscribe, because this channel is dedicated almost purely to traveling around Scotland. So if that's something that you're planning in 2025 or even 2026, this is the place to keep an eye on. I'm always sharing interesting stuff I found, newly opened restaurants, lesser known areas, little hikes, trips to Scottish cities that you might not have considered during your visit. So yeah, please do subscribe and also click the bell. It's probably on the other side. Anyway, click the bell, because that's like the best way of always getting notifications about new stuff, eating my hair, about new stuff that I have put out there. And if you want to see even more, I also do have a whole bunch of bonus content over on my Patreon. So yeah, if you want to see bonus content, if you want to have access to me and maybe some like sketches from me, head on over to Patreon. This is the link. If you do want to see a map that I've spent a whole bunch of time building for anyone who's visiting and wants to see all the basics, but also all of the sort of local hidden gems, head on over to Mapper, link in the description. And if you want to just kind of see what I'm up to or say hi, I'm also always way too much time of my day on Instagram under KakiBot, where I post my illustrations mostly and kind of more like personal stuff, and KakiBlog, which is the more sort of photography heavy side of Instagram for me. And I also like to post pictures of food that I eat around Edinburgh. So yeah, like interesting sort of foodie finds. So yeah, based on what you prefer, visit me on one or the other or both. And that's it for me. Hopefully your 2025 is amazing. Hopefully any trips you're planning go perfectly, even though sometimes the less perfect stuff leads to the best stories. But we want that to be an exception and not the rule. Okay, that was the last wisdom for me, and I shall see you soon.